Ethan had always thought of himself as a laid-back guy. He wasn't the kind of person to shy away from new experiences. That's probably why he agreed to live with Zara, an alien from a distant planet. He had always been curious about other species, and when the opportunity came to share an apartment with an alien, he couldn't resist. But now, after living together for a few weeks, Ethan wasn't so sure about his decision. Zara was unlike anyone Ethan had ever met. She had the appearance of a humanoid wolf, with tall, strong features and sharp, glowing eyes. Her skin was a deep shade of blue, which contrasted with her bright white hair. Despite her fierce appearance, she had a calm, almost graceful demeanor. However, their living situation was far from smooth. At first, things were okay. To herself for the most part, but when they did interact, Ethan found her fascinating. Her planet's culture was completely different from his own, and she often told him stories of her home. Zara didn't speak much about herself, though, and that left Ethan feeling a little distant. She was polite, but something about her made it hard to get close. One of the main things Ethan noticed was that Zara was always very private about her personal space. She never allowed Ethan into her room, not even when he needed help with something. She was mysterious, and while that intrigued him, it also left him with a sense of unease. Ethan had been living with Zara for a few weeks now, but it was only recently that he learned about a strange tradition in her species. During mating season, alien creatures like Zara would go through a period where their emotions and behaviors became unpredictable. Ethan had heard rumors of this, but he never thought it would affect his life. He had brushed it off as alien folklore, something that sounded strange but didn't seem real. That was until today. Ethan had just returned from a long day at work, looking forward to some peace and quiet. But when he entered the apartment, he immediately noticed that something was off. There was an electric tension in the air, something he couldn't explain. It wasn't just the usual quiet. Ethan walked into the living room to find Zara pacing back and forth, her sharp eyes scanning the room. "Zara?" he asked cautiously, taking a step forward. She didn't respond, her movements erratic. He had never seen her like this before. She was usually calm and composed, but now there was a sense of urgency in her behavior. "Zara, what's going on?" he asked again, a bit more firmly. She stopped pacing and turned to face him. "It's happening," she said in a low voice. "Mating season. I don't know how to explain it." Ethan blinked. "Mating season?" he repeated, his mind struggling to catch up. He had heard of it, but he didn't expect Zara to be so affected by it. "Yes," she said, her voice shaking. "My species. When the mating season comes, we go through changes. It's not just physical, it's emotional too. It's hard to control sometimes." Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. He had heard that mating season could make aliens act differently, but this was something else. Zara had never shown signs of being affected by it before, and now it was clear that it was taking a toll on her. "I didn't think it would happen so soon," she continued, her voice trembling. "I thought I had more time, but now I can't stop it." Ethan didn't know what to say. He had no experience with alien mating rituals, and the last thing he wanted to do was make Zara feel uncomfortable. But seeing her so distressed made him want to help. "Is there anything I can do?" he asked, his voice softening. Zara looked at him with a mix of confusion and desperation. "I don't know. You don't understand what this feels like. It's overwhelming. I can't control it." Ethan watched as she clenched her fists, her sharp claws digging into her palms. He wondered if she might lash out. He took a step back, but then Zara turned away from him, taking a deep breath. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, her voice much softer now. "I didn't mean to scare you. I don't know how to deal with this." Ethan took a deep breath, unsure of what to do. He knew this wasn't Zara's fault. She wasn't acting this way on purpose. The mating season was something beyond her control, and Ethan couldn't help but feel a little sympathy for her. But still, being trapped in the apartment with her during this time seemed like a nightmare. "It's okay." To calm her, "We'll figure this out together." But deep down, he wasn't so sure. The storm came without warning. One moment Ethan was sitting on the couch, trying to relax after a long day at work, and the next, the power went out. The lights flickered before completely dying, leaving the apartment in darkness. Ethan's first instinct was to check the windows. He looked outside and saw the sky had turned an eerie purple with thick swirling clouds, and the wind howled, rattling the windows. "Zara," Ethan called out, his voice uneasy. He could hear her footsteps approaching, but when she stepped into the room, it was clear that something was wrong. Zara's skin, which usually had a soft, deep blue tone, now looked almost translucent, and her sharp eyes glowed brighter than ever. She looked at Ethan with a mixture of concern and anxiety. "Ethan, the storm," Zara said, her voice shaky. "It's not just any storm. It's affecting everything." Ethan felt a sudden knot in his stomach. He had never seen Zara this disturbed. She had always been composed, calm, even during moments of tension. But now, she seemed unsure of what to do. "What do you mean? Is it dangerous?" Ethan asked, trying to remain calm. Zara shook her head, her hair slightly tousled from the wind outside. "It's the energy surge. It's messing with the systems. We're trapped here until it passes." Ethan took a deep breath. The storm wasn't the only thing worrying him now. The way Zara was acting nervous, on edge, was becoming more difficult to ignore. He had hoped that the worst of the mating season would pass without causing any real problems, but now it was clear that Zara's condition was more serious than he had realized. "We can't leave?" Ethan asked, glancing around the apartment. It was small but comfortable, and he couldn't help but feel confined. The idea of being stuck in here for days, with the storm raging outside and Zara in her current state, wasn't something he was ready for. "No, the communication systems are down, and there's no way out," Zara said, her voice a little more distant now. "I'll have to wait for the storm to clear before I can try to fix anything." Ethan sighed, rubbing his forehead. This wasn't how he had imagined spending his evening. "Great," he muttered, leaning back against the wall. "Just what I needed." He could feel the tension rising between them. It was one thing to be trapped in an apartment with someone during a normal storm, but with the added pressure of Zara's unpredictable behavior, Ethan wasn't sure how to handle it. He glanced over at her, watching her pace nervously back and forth. "Zara, you're not okay," Ethan said, standing up. "You're really not. I've never seen you like this before." Zara froze mid-step, her glowing eyes meeting his. There was a long pause before she finally spoke. "It's hard to explain," she said quietly, her voice tinged with embarrassment. "The mating season makes everything intense. I can't control it sometimes. My body, my emotions, they get out of hand. I can't focus. I can't think straight." Ethan stepped closer to her, trying to keep his voice calm. "Is there anything I can do to help? I don't want you to feel like this." Zara looked down at the floor, her fists clenched at her sides. "I don't want to hurt you," she whispered. "I'm afraid I might. My species. When we're in mating season, we're not ourselves. The urge to mate is overwhelming." Ethan could hear the strain in her voice, the mix of shame and frustration. He didn't know what to say. He had read about alien species having strange rituals and behaviors, but this was different. This wasn't something he had expected to face, especially not with Zara, someone he considered a friend. "I understand," Ethan said, trying his best to keep his tone gentle. "It's okay. I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure this out together." But even as he said the words, Ethan wasn't sure if he believed them. How could he help Zara through something he didn't understand? Could he deal with the storm outside, the isolation, and the growing tension between them? Zara looked up, her eyes softening for a moment. "Thank you. I don't want to be alone in this." Ethan nodded, but there was still a sinking feeling in his chest. He could see how much the situation was wearing on Zara. Her usual composure had cracked, and now she seemed vulnerable, unsure of what to do next. The storm outside began to grow stronger. The wind howled louder, shaking the building, and the lights flickered again. Ethan felt a sudden chill. The air felt charged, heavy with the energy from the storm. He could sense Zara's discomfort, her frustration. It only made everything seem more intense. "We'll be okay," Ethan said, trying to reassure both Zara and himself. We just need to stay calm. We'll wait it out. But deep down, Ethan knew this was just the beginning. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm brewing inside the apartment. With Zara's condition becoming harder to ignore with each passing minute, Zara took a deep breath and nodded, trying to calm herself. I hope so. As the storm raged on, Ethan couldn't help but wonder just how much longer they would be stuck like this. And more than that, he wondered how much Zara's species' mating season would change things between them as the storm raged outside. The atmosphere inside the apartment became more tense by the hour. The strange energy surge had knocked out all communication systems. And with no way to leave or contact anyone, Ethan was beginning to feel the weight of their isolation. Zara, on the other hand, was becoming more restless. Her behavior was more erratic than ever, and Ethan wasn't sure how to handle it. He had known Zara for a few weeks now, but the woman he saw before him was not the same calm, collected roommate he had once lived with. The air between them was thick with unspoken words and uncomfortable silence. Ethan watched as Zara paced back and forth across the living room, her glowing eyes flashing as she clenched her fists. She stopped every now and then, looking around, her expression almost frantic. I can't stand it, she muttered to herself. It's too much. I can't control it. Ethan wasn't sure what to do. He had never been good with emotions, especially when they were so out of control. He could see that Zara was struggling with something far beyond her control, but how could he help her when he had no idea what she was going through? Zara, Ethan said softly, trying to break the silence. I know this is hard, but I'm here. You don't have to do this alone. She didn't respond at first, but her pacing slowed. She turned to face him, her glowing eyes meeting his. For the first time, Ethan saw vulnerability in them, something that hadn't been there before. I don't want to hurt you, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I don't know how much longer I can keep it in. Ethan could hear the desperation in her voice, and it made his heart ache. Zara wasn't just struggling with the physical effects of mating season. She was struggling with her own emotions and the fear of what she might do if she lost control. He wanted to help her, but he felt completely powerless. Zara, you're not going to hurt me, Ethan said firmly, stepping closer to her. I trust you. You've been nothing but kind to me. We'll figure this out. Zara looked away, her hands shaking. She seemed conflicted, torn between the overwhelming urges of her species' mating season and her desire to maintain control over her emotions. I don't know if I can, she muttered, her voice breaking. It's too strong, the urges. They're consuming me. I can't focus on anything else. I can't stop it. Ethan didn't know how to respond. He couldn't imagine what she was feeling, but he knew he couldn't just stand there and watch her suffer. He had to find a way to help, even if it meant putting aside his own fears. We just need to stay calm, Ethan said, his voice steady. Let's sit down and breathe. Together. I know it's hard, but I'm here for you. Zara seemed hesitant, but she eventually nodded. She sat down on the couch, her hands resting in her lap. Ethan sat beside her, keeping a safe distance, but close enough to offer comfort. They sat in silence for a while, the storm still howling outside. The only sound the occasional crack of thunder. Ethan could feel the tension building between them, the pressure he didn't know how to release. It wasn't just the storm outside. It was the storm inside, the unspoken tension that was slowly pushing them both to their limits. Tell me more about your species, Ethan said, breaking the silence. About the mating season. I don't understand what it's like. Zara turned to him, her glowing eyes softening a little. She seemed to appreciate the question, as though it gave her a moment to explain what she had been going through. Our mating season is complicated, she said, her voice still trembling but steadier now. When it starts, everything changes. My emotions, my instincts, they take over. It's not something I can control. The urge to mate becomes overpowering, and it affects everything I do. I can't think straight. It's like my entire being is consumed by it. Ethan listened carefully, trying to understand her perspective. He had heard bits and pieces about alien species and reproductive cycles. But hearing it from Zara's perspective was different. He could hear the pain in her voice, the frustration that came with not being able to control her own body. I can. See that you're trying, Ethan said softly. And I'm not going anywhere. But I think we need to talk about how to handle this. Maybe we can find a way for you to get through this without feeling so trapped. Zara gave a small, bitter laugh. You don't understand. There's no escaping it. It's like being trapped in your own mind. The urges are too strong. It's hard to focus on anything else. Ethan's heart sank. It thought maybe they could figure something out, but now he realized that the situation was far more complicated than he had imagined. The more Zara talked, the more he understood that her struggles weren't just physical. They were emotional, mental, and there was no easy solution. I don't know what to do, Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm scared. I don't want to hurt you, Ethan. What? Ethan reached out, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. You're not going to hurt me, he said firmly. I'm not afraid of you, Zara. I'm just here to help. We'll get through this together. 4. A moment, Zara seemed to relax, her tense muscles loosening. She looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and fear. I don't deserve your kindness, she whispered, her voice breaking again. But thank you. Ethan smiled gently. You do? And I'm not going anywhere. As the storm continued to rage outside, the tension in the apartment seemed to settle, if only a little. But Ethan knew they weren't out of the woods yet. He had to stay strong for both of them, and help Zara through this strange and difficult time. As the days passed, the storm outside only seemed to get worse. The wind howled, the rain hammered against the windows, and the apartment was eerily silent except for the occasional rumble of thunder. Ethan and Zara were still trapped, but in the quiet of their isolation, something began to shift between them. Zara had been struggling more and more with the effects of the mating season. Emotional and physical pressure had her on edge, and it was clear she was starting to feel overwhelmed. But something about the way Ethan had stayed calm and supported her during the past few days had changed the dynamic between them. At first, Zara had kept her distance. She was embarrassed by the way she had been acting and had tried to avoid Ethan as much as possible. She didn't want to burden him with her struggles, but every time she saw him, he gave her a small, reassuring smile. He wasn't judging her, and he wasn't afraid of what was happening to her. That gave her a sense of relief she hadn't expected. One evening, as the storm continued to rage outside, Zara sat at the small table by the window, her head resting in her hands. Ethan had just finished making some food, something simple, but comforting, and placed it in front of her. Zara, you need to eat, he said gently, sitting across from her. You can't keep pushing yourself like this. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes tired. I know, she said quietly. It's just so hard. My body feels like it's on fire and I can't think straight. It's like I'm losing myself. Ethan watched her for a moment, feeling the weight of her words. He could see that she wasn't just physically drained. She was emotionally exhausted too. It wasn't easy for her, and no matter how hard she tried to keep it all together, it was clear she was struggling. You don't have to do this alone, Ethan said softly, his voice sincere. I'm here. We're in this together. Zara looked at him, her expression softening. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, and for the first time in days, she felt a small sense of hope. She had been pushing him away, afraid that he wouldn't understand. But now she realized that Ethan wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't scared of what was happening to her. He was willing to stand by her, even when things seemed out of control. She nodded, slowly lifting the spoon to her lips. It was a small thing, but for Zara, it was a step forward. As she ate, the tension in her body seemed to lessen just a little, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of calm. I don't know what to say, Zara whispered after a few moments. I've never felt this. Helpless. I don't want to be like this. Ethan smiled gently, his voice reassuring. You're not helpless, Zara. You're just going through something really tough right now. But it doesn't change who you are. You're still the person I've come to know, and you're still someone I respect. Zara's eyes glistened, and for a moment, she was at a loss for words. She had never expected anyone, especially a human, to be so understanding of her struggle. It was hard enough for her to accept what was happening to her, But having Ethan stand by her side made everything a little easier. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Ethan reached across the table and placed a hand over hers. "You don't have to thank me. I'm happy to be here for you. You've been a good roommate, Zara, and I'm not going to leave you now." Zara looked down at their hands, the touch warm and reassuring. She had always kept to herself, never letting anyone get too close. But now, in this moment, she felt a bond forming between them. It wasn't just the fact that they were trapped in the apartment together, it was something deeper. They had shared moments of vulnerability, and in those moments, Zara realized that she trusted Ethan more than she had ever trusted anyone. As the storm outside began to quiet down, Zara found herself feeling less and less like a stranger to Ethan. She had never been comfortable with letting people see her at her weakest. But with Ethan, she didn't feel judged. She felt safe. That was something she had never felt before. Even among her own people, "I've never really had anyone to talk to about all of this," Zara said after a long silence. "Back home, we're taught to deal with everything on our own. The mating season, it's personal, it's a private struggle." Ethan nodded, listening intently. "I get that. But sometimes it helps to have someone there, even if it's just to listen." Zara met his gaze, and for the first time, she didn't feel the weight of the mating season as much. The pressure was still there, but with Ethan's support, it felt a little more manageable. They weren't just two strangers sharing an apartment, they were allies, helping each other through difficult times. "I guess I've been afraid of letting someone in," Zara admitted, her voice quieter now. "Afraid of what they might think, or how they might see me. But you've shown me that it's okay to ask for help." Ethan smiled, his expression warm. "Everyone needs help sometimes. You're not weak for asking for it." Zara felt a small sense of peace settle in her chest. She wasn't alone in this anymore. As the storm finally began to subside, she realized that the bond between her and Ethan had grown stronger. And even though the mating season was far from over, she felt like she could face it with a little more confidence. And as they sat there, the apartment growing quieter, Zara found herself grateful, not just for the shelter and the food, but for the unexpected friendship that had formed between them in the most unlikely of circumstances. Days passed, and the storm outside finally started to calm down, but the tension between Ethan and Zara was still very much present. The storm had trapped them in the apartment together for longer than either of them had expected. And as the days dragged on, Ethan could see that Zara was becoming more and more affected by the mating season. It wasn't just the physical symptoms anymore. It was the emotional toll that was starting to show. Ethan had done his best to stay calm and supportive, but the situation was growing more difficult with each passing day. Zara's mood swings had become unpredictable. One moment, she would be calm and quiet, and the next, she would be angry or frustrated for no clear reason. Ethan didn't know how to handle it, and he could feel the weight of the growing tension between them. Zara had started to withdraw again, hiding herself in her room for long periods. She would come out for meals, but even then, she barely said anything. Ethan could tell that she was fighting to keep her emotions under control, but it was becoming harder for her. And the worst part was that he didn't know how to help her anymore. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Zara suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of frustration and helplessness. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice tight with emotion. "I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending I'm okay." Ethan was taken aback. He had never heard her sound like this before. There had always been a sense of control in her, even when she was struggling. But now, it was as if that control was slipping away. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, standing up to face her. "Zara, you don't have to pretend. I know this. It's hard for you, but we're in this together." Zara turned to him, her eyes flashing with a mix of anger and fear. "You don't understand," she shouted, her voice trembling. "You don't know what it's like to feel completely out of control. To feel like you're losing yourself to something you can't stop." Ethan took a step back, his heart racing. He hadn't expected this outburst, and for a moment, he wasn't sure how to respond. He had always tried to be understanding, but this was different. He had never seen Zara like this before. "I'm sorry," Zara said, her voice softening. "I didn't mean to yell at you. It's hard. It feels like everything's falling apart. I'm scared I'm going to hurt you." Ethan's heart ached as he watched her struggle with her emotions. He could see how much pain she was in, but he didn't know how to make it better. All he could do was stand there, watching as she fought to keep herself together. "Not going to hurt me, Zara," Ethan said, his voice steady. "I know you're going through something really difficult, but I'm here for you. I won't leave you." Zara looked away, wiping a tear from her eye. "I don't want to be like this. I don't want to keep pushing you away, but I don't know how to stop it." Ethan stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her arm. "It's okay. You don't have to do this alone. We'll figure this out together." For a moment, they just stood there, the tension between them palpable. Ethan could feel the weight of Zara's emotions, and it made his chest tighten. He wanted to do more to help, but he didn't know how. Zara took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "I'm sorry," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to put this on you." Ethan shook his head. "You're not putting anything on me. I'm here because I want to be, and I want to help you. But I think we need to talk more. I think we need to face what's happening instead of just pretending it's not." Zara looked at him, her expression softening. "I don't know what to say. I've never let anyone in before. This mating season, it's not something I can explain. It's like I'm not myself anymore." Ethan squeezed her arm gently. "I can't fully understand what you're going through, but I can be here for you. You don't have to go through this by yourself." There was a long silence, and Zara seemed to consider his words. For the first time, she looked at him not with fear or shame, but with gratitude. She had been so focused on her own struggles that she hadn't realized how much Ethan was willing to stand by her. "Thank you," Zara said quietly. "I don't know why, but I've been pushing you away. Maybe I thought if I kept everyone at a distance, it would be easier, and now I see that I was wrong. You're the only one who's been here for me." Ethan smiled softly, his heart warming. At her words, "It's okay. I'm not going anywhere. We'll get through this one step at a time." Zara nodded, the weight of her emotions slowly starting to lift. She still felt the urges of the mating season, and they still made her feel out of control, but for the first time in days, she didn't feel so alone in it. Ethan was still there, offering his support, and that made all the difference. As the storm outside began to quiet down, so did the tension in the apartment. Zara and Ethan sat together in silence, each of them lost in their thoughts. They had faced a breaking point, but instead of pushing them further apart, it seemed to have brought them closer together. For the first time in a long while, Zara felt a sense of peace. She didn't know how the rest of the mating season would unfold, but for now, she knew she wasn't facing it alone, and that was enough. The storm had finally passed, and the apartment felt quieter, as if the world outside was finally beginning to calm down. But inside, things between Ethan and Zara were still charged with a kind of quiet energy. The days they had spent trapped together in the apartment had changed something between them, and Zara was starting to realize just how much Ethan had come to mean to her. Zara had spent most of the past few days in silence, her emotions still raw from the effects of the mating season. But something had shifted within her. She was no longer pushing Ethan away. Instead, she found herself appreciating the way he had stayed by her side, offering calm words when she needed them most. And now she felt a new sense of understanding between them, one that went beyond simple roommate friendship. Ethan, too, had noticed the change. The tension that had once filled the apartment seemed to be slowly melting away. Zara was still going through the challenges of the mating season, but the outbursts had lessened, and she was starting to open up more. There were still moments of silence, but they no longer felt uncomfortable. They were simply learning to exist together in this strange situation. One afternoon, as the sun finally broke through the clouds, Zara sat by the window, looking out at the world beyond. Ethan watched her for a moment, wondering what she was thinking. He had always admired her quiet strength, but he had never realized how much she was holding inside. Today, though, there was a gentleness to her that he hadn't seen before. Ethan took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts before walking over to her. Zara, he said softly. I know you're still going through a lot, but I just wanted to say, I'm really glad we've been able to talk more. Zara turned to him, her eyes softening as she met his gaze. I'm glad too, she said. Quietly, I've been so focused on myself, trying to keep it all under control. But you've made me realize that I don't have to do everything on my own. Ethan smiled, sitting down next to her. You don't. We're in this together, remember?
Oh, wait.
Zara nodded, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of the window. It's just never really opened up to anyone. Shh, where I come from, we're taught to keep our emotions in check. We don't talk about things like this. Mating season is something we're supposed to deal with alone. But you've shown me that maybe that's not the right way to handle it. Ethan listened carefully, sensing that this was an important moment for her. I understand, he said gently. But you don't have to carry all of that by yourself. Sometimes talking about it is the best way to handle it. I've been trying to understand, but I know I'll never fully get what it's like for you. Still, I want to be here. I want to help. Zara turned her gaze back to the window, her expression thoughtful. It's hard for me to accept help. I don't know why. But I always feel like I should be able to handle everything on my own. I guess I've been afraid that if I let someone in, I'll lose control completely. Ethan reached over, placing a hand gently on her arm. You're not losing control, Zara. You're just going through something really intense, and it's okay to need support. It doesn't make you weak. She looked at him, her glowing eyes soft with gratitude. I've never had anyone say that to me before, she whispered. It feels good to hear it. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was peaceful. Zara felt a weight lifting from her shoulders, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could breathe a little easier. I think I've been afraid of showing too much of myself, Zara continued, her voice quieter now. I thought that if I kept everything inside, people wouldn't see me as weak. But the truth is, I've been pushing people away, even when I needed them the most. Ethan gave her a reassuring smile. You're not weak, Zara. You're strong, and I see that now more than ever. It takes a lot of courage to face what you're going through. You've been doing it all this time, even when it's been hard. Zara smiled faintly, feeling something inside her shift. She had always been so used to pushing everyone away, to being independent, but now she understood that there was strength in letting someone else in. She didn't have to face everything on her own, and with Ethan by her side, she wasn't alone. I've never had a human friend before, Zara said softly, almost as if she was still processing the idea. I've always kept my distance from others, even my own kind. But you've been different. Then chuckled lightly. Glad it could be different. You've been a good roommate, Zara, and I'm happy we've been able to talk like this. Zara turned to him, her expression soft and thoughtful. I don't think I ever really understood friendship before, but now I think I get it. It's not about being alone or doing everything on your own. It's about sharing the burden, even when it's hard. Ethan smiled warmly, feeling a sense of relief. Exactly. You don't have to go through this alone. We'll face it together. The first time in a long while, Zara felt a sense of peace. The mating season was still affecting her, and she knew there would be difficult moments ahead. But now, she wasn't facing it alone. Ethan was there, offering support, understanding, and friendship. As the day grew quieter, with the last traces of the storm fading into the distance, Zara realized that she had started to change. She wasn't the same person who had arrived here, isolated and distant. She had opened herself up, and in doing so, she had found something she never thought she would, a true connection, and someone who cared enough to stand by her side. And for the first time in a long while, Zara felt like she could truly heal. The storm had finally cleared. The once dark sky was now a soft blue, the clouds scattered and slowly drifting away, leaving the world outside quiet and calm. Inside the apartment, Ethan and Zara sat together, the silence between them no longer uncomfortable. The days of tension and uncertainty had passed, and while the mating season wasn't completely over, there was a sense of peace that had settled in the space. Between them, Ethan had never imagined that a storm could change so much. When he first moved in with Zara, he had no idea how their lives would intertwine. First, it had felt awkward living with someone so different from him. But now, after everything they had been through, he realized just how much he had come to respect and care for her. Zara, too, had changed. The emotional and physical toll of the mating season had been overwhelming at times, but she had faced it with more strength than she had believed possible. She had allowed herself to be vulnerable, something she had never done before, and in doing so, she had discovered a new side of herself, a side that was more open, more connected to those around her. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not just as an alien, or a creature to be understood from a distance, but as a person. Now, as they sat together in the quiet of the apartment, Zara felt a sense of calm she hadn't expected. The pressure of the mating season had been heavy, but it had also allowed her to understand the importance of connection. She had always kept to herself, too afraid to let anyone in. But now, with Ethan by her side, she realized that she didn't have to go through life alone. "I can't believe it's over," Zara said softly, breaking the silence. "The storm, the mating season, everything." Ethan looked over at her, a small smile on his face. "It's been a lot, hasn't it?" "I don't think either of us expected this." Zara smiled back, the faintest hint of amusement in her eyes. "Definitely not. But I guess it's been eye-opening. I never thought I could let someone in like this." Ethan's smile widened. "I'm glad you did. I think we've both learned a lot about each other over the past few days." Zara nodded, her gaze turning thoughtful. "I've learned that sometimes it's okay to not be in control. I've spent so much time trying to hold everything together, but now I see that it's okay to let go, to lean on someone else when things get tough." Ethan's expression softened. "And I've learned that sometimes all you really need is someone who listens. Don't have to fix everything yourself." There was a quiet pause as the two of them took a moment to reflect on everything that had happened. Storm had passed, both literally and metaphorically, and what was left was a sense of mutual respect and understanding. Neither of them was the same as when they first met. They had both grown in ways they hadn't expected. Zara turned to Ethan, her expression serious but warm. "I want to thank you for being here, for staying with me through all of this. You've shown me that it's okay to trust, and that not everyone is going to run when things get difficult." Ethan's heart swelled at her words. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad I could be here for you." Zara smiled, and for the first time in days, her expression felt completely at ease. "I think I can finally start looking at things differently now. Maybe I don't have to be afraid of change. Maybe it's not such a bad thing after all." Ethan nodded. "Change can be tough, but it can also be a good thing. You've shown me that too." The two of them sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the last remnants of the storm fade away into the distance. It was hard to believe that only a few days ago, everything had seemed so uncertain, so out of control. But now, as they sat together in the warmth of the apartment, the future seemed a little clearer, a little brighter. Zara looked at Ethan, a sense of gratitude in her eyes. "I don't know what comes next, but I think I'm ready for whatever it is." Ethan smiled, his heart light. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." It was in that moment that Zara realized how much she had changed. She had spent so much time trying to hide from her emotions, trying to keep everything in control. But now, she understood that it wasn't weakness to lean on someone else. It wasn't weakness to trust. It wasn't weakness to let herself feel. She glanced out the window again, the sunlight spilling into the room. For the first time, she felt truly at peace. The storm outside had passed, and so had the storm inside her. There was still much to learn, but she wasn't afraid of it anymore. And as for Ethan, he knew that whatever came next, he would be there for her. The bond between them had grown, in a way neither of them had expected, but now it felt like the most natural thing in the world. They had both been through something difficult, something challenging, but in the end, they had come out stronger for it, together.